Hello there, good evening. In a week where distances and time frames hit the headlines, well, it really got us thinking. It's now almost 9 weeks since the start of lockdown, and most of us, at least, still seem to be adhering to those government guidelines. Almost 10 weeks since the ball was last kicked in anger up here in the northeast, and approximately 5,122 weeks since the Newcastle United takeover rumours first began. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for some resolution on all of the above. I'm Andy Sixsmith, this is Football Matters, and here's what's coming up on tonight's programme. The Bundesliga is back, La Liga has set a return date. Could we be edging closer to the return of English football in one way or another? After 10 positive tests out of 2,000 in the Premier League and the Championship, we discuss Project Restart with former Sunderland and Gateshead midfielder John Oster. There's been rumour, conjecture and false dawns aplenty. But could this be the week Newcastle United's long-awaited takeover is announced? Well, first, the issue of ticket refunds to be considered. We'll be doing exactly that with the Newcastle Utd Supporters Trust's Thomas Concannon. And legal action at South Shields, new faces in at Spennymoor and Stockton, and a milestone at Gateshead. All of that and more to be discussed in our roundup of another week of North East football. But before we get onto all of that, it's time to bring the big guns back in. And big by way of reputation, rather than the effect that the lockdown is having on each and every one of them. It is, of course, our three peerless pundits, about 20,000 beds away from my flat, and wondering why Barnard Castle doesn't have a team in the Northern League yet. North East football writer and expert Mark Carruthers. Approximately 750,000 fridges away from me, and 22 years to the day on from a moment and a match that we said that we wouldn't necessarily mention, but we are going to. Sunderland legend Darren Williams, and about 1/25th of a distance from London to the northeast away from me. He's delighted that Durham is in the headlines. He'd just rather it be for footballing reasons. The man who's enjoyed a little bit of Twitter over the last week, I think it's fair to say, former Newcastle United defender Olivier Bernard. Ollie, we will come onto your Twitter escapades in just a second, my friend. Yep. But firstly, Mark, no team in Barnard Castle. Give us a lowdown.
No, there's just no team. I was going to say I nearly missed it because I've just got back from a 300-mile drive, but I don't have to explain why I did it. I certainly don't have to apologise. But anyway, moving on. And
in no way breaking any guidelines whatsoever. We will quickly move on from that one. Darren, yes, 22 years on from the playoff final defeat to Charlton. A match my dad was at, and he said, despite it being the most painful day in his life, it was also one of the best games that he's ever seen. Do you agree with that or not?
Yeah, well, yeah, I do. I mean, obviously, at the time, it's heartbreaking, to see, obviously, the fans are disappointed, obviously players, the club officials, managers, etc. But, we always said, after the game, and, I think obviously it was publicised that, we would be stronger next season. We would be better for it. And we would go on and walk the league, and I don't mean that in a big-headed way or in an arrogant way, but yeah. We just felt that we'd learned so much from that season, that would carry us on next season, and we'd be very successful, which obviously we were. But a painful day, horrible day, all in all. I remember it being absolutely roasting. Yeah. And we had the gold kit on, which was like wearing a shield of armour. It was that thick. It had an inner lining. Had an inner lining. And we had that kit on, and it was just horrendous. We were sweating before we even got out. But it was mental. But to be fair, the atmosphere was fantastic. Yeah. The Sunderland fans were absolutely tremendous that day. And albeit we lost it on penalties. However, the Sunderland fans were fantastic after the game as well. I think they knew, themselves that next year would be a lot better and a lot more convincing.
Regardless of the pain and obviously the result. Best game you've played in? Craziest game I presume you've ever played?
Oh, absolutely. You look at the first half, and the first half was quite really quiet and mundane, really, to be quite honest. And then everything just blew up in the second half. It was crazy. But yeah, it's probably one of the best games I've played in. Probably one of the best learning curves I've ever had in my career. If you look at the Sunderland squad, we had a lot of young lads in. A lot of young lads that had kind of more or less come through. Yeah. system. Obviously myself, I didn't come through the system, but I was still a young lad that was brought in. Yeah. We learned a lot, obviously, not only from the experienced players, Kevin Baldy, now Quins, people like that, but we learned a lot that day from ourselves as well. And we took that away, we took it on board. And to be quite honest, I think if you'd have asked every lad in that squad, we'd have happily drove back to Sunderland and started pre-season training.
Yeah, which is incredible in itself, I suppose. And obviously, you would have jumped straight in the fridge or an ice bath immediately afterwards with urinal lining Sunderland shirts on, which is incredible in itself. Ollie, do you recollect this game, 1998 playoff final? Sunderland.
No, but no. You can always imagine Sunderland losing a game. But other than that, no, I wasn't born.
He's got the wallpaper. He's got the wallpaper of it, I tell you.
That's his wallpaper. That's his background next week, I imagine. He's just a week too late with it. Ollie, we'll come on to you now then, shall we? Because it's been a busy last 7 days or so for you after your comments last week on the takeover. In your defence, simply passing on information you've been told rather than making any outlandish claims that we have seen. And I think it's fair to say that Twitter went a little bit doolally when the takeover didn't go through on Tuesday. You did say it was 80% in fairness. So what we thought we would do, with your blessing of course, is select a few of the best replies and comments and messages that you got on social media, on Twitter, and play a game of mean tweets, as made famous over in the States by Jimmy Kimmel, I think it was. Do you know of this, Ollie?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah. It'll be I'm quite interested because I haven't read any sort of messages that I get. To be honest, I'm here to report, not really read comments. So that's where I am. Anyway.
Can me and Daz just have 5 minutes to send a few new ones in?
Can do.
I think Daz is just going to send in that wallpaper of the 1998 playoff final, isn't it?
What he didn't tell us, though, he said Boris Johnson told him the deal was going through. That's what it was.
Source came from 10 Downing Street itself. So, Ollie, you're happy to go along with this, are you?
Of course.
I didn't think the answer would be no. Then let's get going. The idea is that you're going to read the tweet out because this is one of the first times that you've seen them and you're going to react to them. So I'm going to go relatively quiet and we're going to start bringing up a few tweets for you to have a look at. So let's go. And here comes the first tweet.
Okay. That's 2007. Make it look like he died and he was 5 years old. I don't really understand that one. What do you think it meant?
I think because the caption underneath, mate, was Ollie Bernard played for Newcastle United between 2000 and 2005, which makes it look like it's rather an obituary.
I like that one. To be honest. Okay. He's trying his hardest to be funny, but yeah, I'll give him a 6 out of 10.
Not bad. Okay. Yeah. Let's go on to the next one then. This one, I like this one.
Okay, contrast Oliver Bernard on his takeover and fall when it was in my junior. Matt Pies met him at the autograph session. He promised me that we would sign a new contract and stay before leaving a month after. Never forget. Well, what I can say to that one is that, you can't force a club to sign you. If they want to sign you, they sign you. If you're not good enough, they won't sign you. So I've got to say to that one, it's out of my hand, on contract discussion. If people want to renew your contract, they do. If they don't like you or you're not a good player, you're terrible, then they won't. So in that case, I'll say probably I wasn't good enough.
And any apology for this person's heart that you quite clearly broke all those years ago?
You don't have to apologise for anything anymore. Just remember that. You don't have to apologise for anything, no matter how bad it is. What we shouldn't forget, Newcastle did have Celestine Babayaro at the time as well.
There we go. So that would be my consolation. Babayaro was a much stronger player.
Yeah.
And obviously I had to let him have the number 1 spot.
Okay. Tongue firmly in cheek there.
Massively in cheek.
Let's go with the next tweet. Next one.
Yeah, famously, Benavens always get behind the scene news from the Premier League before the journalists club themselves. Yes, that's true, because clubs very often keep that secret. So I think you need to count on people like me, like you, like everybody to bring people up to speed. And I think without us, I think we'll still be mourning because nothing's happening. At least I did excite a lot of people last week, didn't I?
You certainly did that, mate. If you're good for nothing, you are very, very good at exciting people. I'm sure. Let's head on to the next one.
More nonsense. I wouldn't be surprised if the Seals had 100% followers and 3 tweets, like most of the ITK account. ITK
is in the know, mate. In the know.
In the know. Okay. I didn't know if I got more followers over this. I hope I did. It wasn't meant to gain followers. I think I've got enough. But like I said, it's all about getting people excited. That's what I want, and I'll continue doing that.
I like it. Very diplomatic. This next one is certainly one of my favourite, shall we say, images of you in recent years. Take a look at this. I don't think there's much to read out. Ollie, have you seen this before? And
yeah, that was years ago when I was working with Showries in the Red Card. We had an interview. I think it was the Night TV. I think, and we had to did an interview regarding the work that I was doing for the campaign, and looking back at it, Steve Howie. Don't know what happened there. Steve Howie probably went on holiday and got a suntan, a very good suntan, super good suntan, and then they did make the mistake. It's a bit embarrassing for them.
It's an easy mistake to make, though.
Very much.
Well, yeah. I mean, coming from holidays, we are quite similar. It went that dark that you could have mistake the both of us. Yeah.
Easy mistake to make.
Because to be fair, when Ollie came on the screen before, I thought, I've got Steve Howie this week. Excellent. Easy mistake.
You did say that before, yeah.
That's a bit embarrassing for ITV.
A little bit. So we'll move on. We're not out to embarrass anyone. We will move on. 3 more to go, starting with this one.
Seems that he's still suffering from that, bro. Hopefully an announcement will be perfect today. I still wanted that announcement. 23 degrees in the team today will be perfect to unleash the cans. I like that one.
Someone's already unleashed the cans, actually, amongst us, but for a completely different reason. Darren, want to chip in on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought, obviously I've been waiting for the takeover to go through and it still hasn't, so I've vowed I'll keep drinking until it goes through.
It is painful, guys. I know it's painful, but, bear with us. It's coming.
A big load of beer on the drive.
Just got to say, I feel sorry for your wife, Darren, in all of this. For the next, God knows how long you're going to spend it drunk. I think this next one, Ollie, is relatively linked to the last one.
Okay, me when the takeover finally goes through. And I definitely like that. It will be like that myself. I'll do it again if it goes through. I'll be the first probably the happiest person in the world.
I thought you were going to say if it goes through, you're going to invite Lauren Robert to cannon a ball off your head again.
It is due to come back, to be honest. We've talked about it, so we we'll see.
Let's record it, get it on Football Matters. You know the drill, mate. Send that out on social media, and we'll do another mean tweets afterwards once we see the replies. Very last one. One of my producers' personal favourites. This one, because it's short, simple, and you could argue to the point.
So let's see. I can't really. Olivier Ballonnet. Ballonnet. Who's that?
So, baloney, I think, is another word for nonsense, mate.
Oh. No, it's not nonsense because it's happening. So yeah, that person is a bit obviously not reading the news. He doesn't even know that there's a takeover happening. So unfortunately, bless him. Wake him up.
To be fair, Ollie, you did say it was Tuesday. I mean, there's more Tuesdays in the year, isn't there, than just one?
Very true.
Yeah, I agree. But I didn't say Tuesday tomorrow. I said tomorrow, thinking it was going to be this week.
Exactly,
so
mate.
It'll be tomorrow, Tuesday.
When are you running for Parliament, Ollie?
Straight. Well, after the takeover.
After Wednesday, sometime then, yeah.
It's happening. It's happening tomorrow, anyway. But just in case you want to know.
I was going to ask, have we got any takeover updates this week? Not because I want to trap you, but we are after doing this mean tweet segment every week, and I know you have a skin thicker than an ancient rhino, Ollie. So have we got any more updates on the Newcastle United takeover or not?
Yeah, it's good.
I think it's happening. It's happening. It's happening. Definitely, it will be tomorrow, or the day after, But it's happening. We know it's happening. Get the excitement back. I know it's been a week, but we can get the excitement. Get the cans out. Go to the mall, get the cans, and they'll be ready. Give 24 hours, 48 hours, 36. Let's see how it goes.
Brilliant. Absolutely cracking stuff. Brilliant job, Ollie. Never change, eh? Anyway, thank you for doing all those mean tweets, mate. It's all a bit of fun, isn't it, folks? And
yeah.
we wouldn't want to be accused of being, attention-seeking or anything like that anyway.
No.
Not at all, no. Quick reminder, anyway, tonight we're on all sorts of social media. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We're at youtube.com/Football Matters. Follow us on Twitter or Instagram at Footy Matters TV. And give us a like on Facebook as well while you're at it. You can watch this, YouTube, Facebook, or you can listen to the podcast on SoundCloud. Let's get into the programme then and the crux of things. And we're going to kick things off with Project Restarts. Come back to Newcastle in a little bit. But this is the hottest topic around at the moment, of course. The Bundesliga is back. La Liga is back on June the 8th, 9th, I think. The Premier League is expected to follow now, especially after the results of the first wave of tests being carried out. I think it was 8 positive tests out of over 1,000 done. We'll get on to whether that's a good figure or a bad figure and what your opinions are on that in a second. But first, let's welcome our first guest onto the show because it's been a few years since we've seen this lad on Football Matters, but I'm absolutely delighted to have him back. Former Sunderland and Gateshead midfielder and fresh from having a barbecue outdoors, so we will not keep him long. John Oster, how are you doing, my friend?
All right, mate. Yourself?
Good, man. We are not so bad. A little bit jealous of your barbecue that you've got cooking that you're going to be going back to in about 10 minutes' time or so.
No worries.
Just to confirm, mate, for the sake of our producer, you're not joining us from Durham or Barnard Castle at all, are you?
No, I don't need an eye test, so I'm all right. I'm just at home.
Excellent. That will do for me fine. And to be honest, would it matter if you were? Anyway, how are you getting on? How's lockdown life treating you? Because I know when we spoke over the weekend, it was a bit dull.
It's hard work, isn't it? I think it's tedious, and I just think everyone just wants to get things back to normal as soon as possible. But it is what it is, and I dare say everyone's trying to make do with what the sort of the hand that they've been dealt, and whether or not that's homeschooling and things like that, which is an absolute nightmare for people like me. But it is what it is, mate, and you just got to get on with it.
I wish I could spend this entire 10 minutes talking to you about the homeschooling of your kids, John, but I feel like it's best to move on from that. You've had enough about it, presumably. Let's get on to the football. Let's get your views on Project Restart. It's meant to be returning over the next few weeks, especially Premier League football. What's your take on this situation as it stands in getting Premier League football initially back up and running?
Personally, I think if you've got 8 positive tests, and they've obviously done two sets of testing now, so I think there was 6 in the first wave of testing, and then there's 2 in the next wave. So I think they've done something, like, just off the top of my head, I'm sure it was like 1,700 to 1,800 tests, something like that. across the board. A few staff have got it, and obviously some of the players have got it. But if you take that as a percentage, then you're looking at literally sort of like 0. I don't know. I think it was 8% the other day when I seen it. Yeah. So it's not in the big scheme of things a big deal. And then when you also take into account the people that obviously it does affect, because you've got your elderly, you've got your people who have got underlying health issues. So I'd like to think that they're the people that are trying to look after themselves and keep themselves out of harm's way. So when you look at that, I think you've got to sort of weigh up the pros and cons. And sometime in the not too distant future, we've got to get a little bit of normality back into life. And I think going back and playing football when they're in a circumstance where they can get tested week in, week out, twice a week, they can go back and they can feel that the players that are obviously testing positive, they can go and get isolated, come back, and then obviously we can move on. The players aren't running around, well, mostly anyway, apart from Jack Grealish and people like that, but most players aren't running around doing silly stuff. So most of them are normal people, and you know what they're doing. They're going training, they're going home, they're going training, they're going home. So it's a case of how long do we wait? Do we wait until there's literally 0 positive tests? I just don't know myself.
So would you, just on this number, because it is 8 positives out of, like you say, close to 1,700, 1,800 tests. Yeah. Just quickly, is that what you would regard a safe figure for?
Well, I think that's something that the Premier League should have said before they actually did the testing. I think they've got to obviously set the guidelines, and they've got to say when it is safe and when it's not safe. And I think if they'd have said from the start, look, if we get a percentage, X amount, if it's under 1%, if it's this, that, if it's the other, then they should have said that from the start. And I think if they'd have just said that, then everyone would have gone, well, we've only got 8 positives out of 1,700, then, well, everything's fine. But people still go, yeah, but people's lives and things, like people are always going to pick up on, right, 8 people are still positive and they're going to go home to their children, their wives, etc., and things like that. So I think it's a bit of a grey area where the Premier League probably could have come out from the start and said, look, this is the route we're going down, this is the testing we're going to do, and if it comes up under X amount of percentage, then we look at it as fine. Because I think in Germany they've started, and I think they had, was it 10, 13 positive tests, something like that? So they're already underway. So I know it's obviously different. You can't really go on like Germany as an example, as a country. Yeah. But if they're getting positive tests in the region of 10 to 13, and we've gone from 6 tests one week to 2 tests the next, then the natural progression is no positive. Sorry.
Yeah. And you talk about the Premier League coming out and talking about it, but players, individual players, already have. The likes of Troy Deeney and N'Golo Kante have said that they're going to be staying away. Danny Rose has been quite vocal on his thoughts of playing as well. Can you understand where they're coming from, John, as individual players with obviously opinions and minds of their own?
I can in a way, but you can't, like, I've said it to a few friends, you can't have 2 or 3 players dictating the whole Premiership, and that's what you've got. I understand Troy Deeney is a different situation because it's understandably his child's had breathing difficulties, etc. So don't get me wrong, that's a kind of one-off scenario that you can't really say either way. And if that's
and N'Golo Kante as well with his brother, etc.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Like, and I just think when that situation is fine, okay, like. You've got a squad of 30 players, and if one of the players can't play, and the Premier League have said, look, this is when we're going to start. If we get X amount of 0 positives, coronavirus test by this certain time, then we're going to start on this time. So if they said, right, look, we're going to start June the 10th, 12th, 13th, 14th, whatever it is, it gives people plenty of time to sort of readjust it. And like, I understand Danny Rose and people like that saying that, but you can't sort of say, right, look, I fear for my life, when the sort of, how can I explain it? Like, I don't want to go into like the politics of coronavirus, but like the science is there to say that a healthy person in each age bracket in between 20 to 30 is very limited, and that they might not catch it. They might catch it and not even know they've had it. Do you know what I mean? Things like that. But I also understand in black people that that they might be more susceptible, because that's what we've been told. So I understand where they're coming from in that sense, but I just genuinely think that you can't have 3 or 4 players dictating to the Premiership how and when it should start. If those players feel that they don't want to play, then that's fine. They need to sort of put something in place to say, right, we're going to have to play these games with and without you. It's simple as that. And I think that's just how they're going to have to sort of play the thing, really.
I was going to ask, actually, how do you think the clubs will react to key players not playing? Let's say Troy Deeney, doesn't play when the Premier League season returns, and N'Golo Kante doesn't play when the Premier League season resumes. How do you think the clubs will react to that? I imagine they'll be very, very sympathetic towards their situations, won't they?
Absolutely, of course they are, and I'm totally with that. If they don't feel that they need to play because obviously they value their family's life or their child's life more than that, and that is perfectly good in my book. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. I totally understand that, and you've got to take each sort of case in its own merit, and if that's the decision they make, then they obviously stand by it, and that's not a problem. But I don't think the Premier League can say, well, we can't start them because everyone doesn't agree to it, when there's literally 3 or 4 people that don't have the same opinion of everyone else.
Yeah, and interestingly, Troy did say one of his concerns, I think, was that nobody can answer questions effectively on this. Yeah. How big a concern is that? I think you touched upon it already, that the guidance has been perhaps a little bit vague when it comes down.
Yeah, I think it has. And I think, like I said before, obviously the testing thing, like they haven't said that there is no guideline to, if we get below a certain level of testing, that we can resume the Premier League football. But I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer. And I just think that they need to be clear, and that they've sort of not been clear along sort of like the whole process really now. And I think it's a little bit strange that they've not been more vocal in what they're doing, because they're a multi-billion corporation, and they need to, they're sort of the benchmark for all the other football leagues, and it seems like they don't really have a clue what they're doing themselves, sort of thing.
You mentioned the other football leagues. Let's head down to the EFL, because obviously the news came out last week. They've confirmed this framework. Should the teams vote to resume the season in some way, it'll be points per game system, playoffs, promotion, relegation, etc. How fair do you think that framework is, should the clubs vote to resume?
Points per game, I think it's a strange one, because it's difficult, isn't it? Because who knows? Some teams have played teams at the top of the league, and they haven't played the bottom teams and things like that. They've played them away. They haven't played them at home. It's impossible to say. And we all know the beauty of football is because on the last day of the season, there's normally a ridiculous story, whereas somebody scores a last-minute goal and keeps them up, or somebody scores a goal to promote them, etc., win the league, whatever. So the only fair outcome is finishing the season. But if that's not possible, then I'm not sure which is the fairest way to go around it, if I'm honest. And I'm just glad it's not my actual decision, to be honest.
I don't think you're alone on that one, mate. I think there's plenty of people exactly the same. Interestingly enough, I know Darren, Olly, Mark, to kind of bring you guys into this, we've discussed this, discussed the bones of this in the last few weeks, obviously, with the situation. I know we've talked about whether the season should be kind of made null and void as well. We've all said that, you guys have said as pundits that you wouldn't be upset to see the seasons be null and void. Is that the way, is it going to be better to complete them this way now that a framework has been put forward, or not?
Is this for me, or is this for anyone?
Anyone who wants to dive in, to be honest. It's such a wide-ranging debate.
Someone else answer this one.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, isn't it, where there's no perfect way to end the season. And as John said, that I'm just pleased I'm not having to make the decision again. I'll go back to what I've said for 2, 3, 4 weeks now, which is I just think whatever the decision was, it should have been rolled out right the way across the leagues. And, that to me would maintain the integrity of our pyramid, or non-league pyramid, football pyramid as a whole. But instead, you've got different tiers of the leagues being tracked differently, and having different, scenarios imposed on them to complete the seasons. And I just think that's unfair. But, if we have to finish, personally, I think the weighted points per game might have been the better way to go. Yeah. I don't think that's what the EFL are doing. I think it's just a straight points per game, whereas was it the RFU Andy, you probably know that better than I will, but the RFU, they imposed a weighted points per game, which I think would have been better. Yeah. But as I say, there's no easy way to finish the season that's going to satisfy everyone. There's going to be them, the clubs that are annoyed by what happened. There will be them that will benefit from it. Yeah. There is no easy decision.
One club that's going to be very, very annoyed by it, if it does go that way, is a club that's held dear to Darren's heart, to John, your heart as well, and that's Sunderland, who would miss out on the playoffs and would be spending another season in League One. John, just to kind of round things off, that if that is going to be the case, which it's looking very, very likely to be, what do you make of Sunderland as a club at the minute? Looking at a third season in League One, the problems off the pitch as well. We've talked about them quite a bit over the last few weeks, but what's your take on them as a club?
Well, I think it's a shame. It's a shame that I've had to sort of see them go from what I've seen in the past and from what I played for and the way they've turned out. It seems like they're just drifting. Is the best word I could probably say at the minute. It's a strange thing to see, because you look at the club and you look at the fans and everything, but then equally you look on the pitch. I've been to a few games, obviously last season before, etc. When they're in the Championship, when they've been in League One, and ultimately the team has never been good enough on the pitch. And I don't know. You can blame everything around you. You can blame a manager. You can blame they haven't got the right people in to run the club, etc. Ellis Short gets the blame. Everyone gets the blame. But ultimately, they've never had a team on the pitch that has just looked like a team for as long as I can remember now.
Not since the days of John Oster and Darren Williams, anyway.
Well, it's never been a team. Yeah. I won't go that far back. But it's never seemed to be a team that looks like it knows what it's doing. Do you know what I mean? And like, even in the Premiership, I know they scraped up a couple of years and they've done unbelievable to get out of the situation they were in and things like that. But they've just never had a team where you think, right, all these players are pulling in the right direction. There's always something in the background, whether or not it's players or in the boardroom or etc. That's upsetting everything within the club. And as soon as they get that right, somebody in the club that just runs it and the team just want to play for Sunderland and the lads are all pulling in the right direction, then it just feels like it's on a merry-go-round. I'm sure Dad probably knows more than me. He's probably spoke to a few of the lads there, but it's a strange place to play at the minute.
And potentially another season in League One as well. Just before you go, John, I promise you can go back to your barbecue very, very shortly. You were obviously at Sunderland when Darren was. What was Darren like as a colleague, as a player? Be honest.
Slimmer than he is now. He was a good lad, Dad, to be fair. He was sound. Good lad. Can't have a bad word to say about him.
Very diplomatic.
John looks like younger.
What did you say?
You look like you're getting younger, mate.
I'm trying. No, it's because I've just got the lockdown haircut.
I was going to say, Andy, when you said a club close to the Hearts, I thought you were going to say Gateshead.
Oh.
I'm not that quick on a Monday night, mate, unfortunately.
Never that quick, mate.
No, in general. But listen, John, thank you very, very much for your time, mate. We won't take up any more of your Monday evening. Really appreciate it. And thanks for coming back on the show after all these years,
No worries, mate. Take care.
Take care. Stay safe, all right?
Take it easy.
That's John Oster, of course, former Sunderland and Gateshead midfielder. Guys, just before we move on to the next topic tonight, I just want to kind of reverse a little bit, rewind, and go back to the Project Restart. We've talked about the number of tests that have been carried out. John obviously had regards it as a safe number. There's been 8 positive tests. Mark, I know you've mentioned it. Darren and Ollie, I just want to get your thoughts on whether that is a safe number for the Premier League to
Well, for me, I know, obviously John's touched on it there. The percentage is really low for obviously the number of tests that's done. Obviously, the tests are going to have to be carried out, at least twice a week. For me, there's still an element of doubt there. I think there's still a health risk there. Not only for the players but for obviously the players' family. You know, and for me, you know, is it worthwhile? You know, and if the Premier League do continue, then surely you got, you know, the Championship's going to have to continue, the League One's going to have to continue, you know, League Two's going to have to continue.
Yeah.
You know, but then you also put the club, you know, not only you take away the health issues and everything that's going on, you also put the club in a financially difficult position. You know, because they're going to be playing these games. You know, they're going to have to still go about the routine as they would normally do.
Yeah.
You know, so does this have a financial, you know, implication on the club? You know, and I'm sure it will do. You know, and like Mark said, you know, it's got to be across the board. You know, if the Premier League decide to do it, you know, and go ahead with it, you know, then why can't, you know, surely it's got to go across the board for everybody else.
Has to be a domino effect, doesn't it? Ollie, what about you? Especially from the BAME standpoint as well. I know there's been Troy Deeney and N'Golo Kante as well, and Danny Rose.
And
it's difficult.
You know, my understanding is, you know, looking at the papers and looking at, you know, various players that they interview, is that everybody wants to go back and play football.
Yeah.
But no one wants to take the risk. That's how I understand it. And you know, the way we heard John saying, you know, it's not just 8, because you've got 8 people who could be in contact with a donor, with a, you know, just passing on. And then we're back to square one, because you go home, you see your family sees somebody's, and then you know, all of a sudden it's back again. Yeah. So for me, the safe number is 0. And that for me will make things start in a good way. But we need to understand that those, you know, when we talk about BME players, yes, they're subject to get it, you know, a lot easier. Yeah. You know, we shouldn't ignore their voices, because they have been interviewed, and I think, you know, when you're interviewed, you kind of talk on behalf of your club, of your teammates, of you know, of the footballers that you know, because their discussions been passed on. I mean, we have that discussion ourselves, so I'm sure players had it as well. So you know, yes, you hear it for one player, but it's probably a few players thinking like that. You wouldn't say something that you think is wrong.
I think as well, it's refreshing to hear the players, like, I know we continually use them as examples, but Troy and N'Golo and Danny come out and give refreshingly honest opinions on this as well, rather than bury their heads in the sand. Yeah,
I totally agree. You know, the players have got to have their opinions at the end of the day. You know, this is the whole thing. You know, if they don't want to play, then they shouldn't have to play. You know, that's the bottom line. For me, what I'm saying is, right, okay, let's say, for instance, it goes ahead, you know, and God forbid, I hope it doesn't happen, but let's say, for instance, we lose one person in football. Yeah. Who's going to take responsibility for that?
Yeah, I know. There's no direct link of causation, is there? And then
if somebody willing to hold their hand up and say, if something happens, I'll take sole responsibility for that.
Can I just jump in and ask you two guys, do you think the PFA have been strong enough throughout this?
I haven't really up from the PFA, to be quite honest, regarding it. You know, maybe they should be involved, you know, a lot more. You know, are they involved a lot more? You know, we know the Premier League's a really powerful league. You know, and obviously, you know, a lot will come from the Premier League and on decision making. You know, and that will be the sole decision. But that's what I'm saying, is somebody's got to take responsibility. You know, somebody's going to stand up and say, I'll take responsibility for anything that happens.
I just think, because, you know, you see when it comes... Sorry, just, you know, when you look at the situation in education, so the National Union of Teachers have stood up for their members, for teachers, and sort of been strong, and the PFA have kind of, they've been quite quiet throughout all this, and I just think that's a little bit of a surprise for me. You know, the players, yes, there's some very strong characters. You know, mentioned Troy Deeney's the one that constantly gets trumpeted, but I just think there's a need for leadership here from the PFA that's been sadly lacking throughout it.
There's definitely a lot of pressure. There's definitely a lot of pressure for the PFA, who is not handling it the best way. I think, you know, as a player union, you're there to protect your players, and you know, I haven't heard anything from any members of the PFA saying, you know, in regards to the players, this is how it's going to happen or how it's going to go. And yes, you know, it's something that we can reflect on. You know, have they failed? Probably, in terms of communication, because it should have been a lot more elaborate. I think they came out and say, we are following the situation, but it's not good enough, especially when you represent the players, because you are the union. And yeah, I agree, Mark. It's not good enough. It's not good enough.
It's a really, really good point, that, Mark, on the PFA. Just to kind of draw a slightly more softer approach and a softer line underneath this, if and when the Premier League does return, of course, it'll be without fans. We've seen a few attempts at replacements. I'm just going to say quite simply, sex dolls in Seoul, rather than get myself into any trouble like I did last week. We've now seen this week a little bit of an upgrade on that. Cardboard cutouts in Gladbach, I think there was. And then I think it seems like a game of one-upmanship. Every single time a club wants to do a little bit better, then we see this. I don't know if you've seen this, guys, so I'll bring up the report from BBC Sport up on the screen. AGF Aarhus, who are a Danish Super League club, creating a virtual grandstand for fans to watch game on Zoom. I know Olly and Darren, you have both said that you would feel very, very strange playing in front of no fans whatsoever. Would that make it any better or not?
No.
We'll move on then. Nice one, Darren.
It's like what Arsenal did. Remember that when Arsenal replaced, was it the North Bank at Highbury?
North Bank.
When they put the mural up and it's not the same. Simple as that. You're never going to replicate it.
Are those TV screens that they've got there?
Yes.
I've seen many players hit the stand. Can you imagine how many of those would get broke again?
You'd hope to have some in reserve, wouldn't you, in Denmark? But at least 10 out of 10 for innovation that we have to say. I can't wait to see what we're going to be reporting on next week, to be honest with you. I wonder what club's going to come up with the next idea, but I dread to think. Anyway, hopefully I'll script it better and I won't make any euphemisms on any future programmes like I did last week. But we'll move swiftly on and we'll talk all things Newcastle United takeover. Only joking. We're not going to talk the takeover much tonight. So Ollie, we've had enough of the mean tweets. We don't want to subject you to that.
I was ready.
We don't want to go down that route again. The fact that I'm even questioning whether takeover is a real word, because we've said it so many times over the last 7, 8, 9 weeks or whatever, suggests just how little we should talk about it in future. Anyway, instead this week we're going to talk ticketing. Newcastle United, one of several clubs in the Premier League that haven't offered fans a refund for games postponed during the COVID-19 crisis. Now, very vocal, as you'd expect on this, is the Newcastle United Supporters Trust, and I'm delighted to welcome Thomas Concannon onto the programme to make his Football Matters debut as well. Thomas is making. So many, many congratulations on your debut, Thomas, and welcome along to Football Matters. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Top man. We are doing very, very well. Thank you very much for being dead patient with that. John Oster wouldn't stop talking about his barbecue, so we went slightly over time. I'd do anything to blame someone else for us going over time, won't I?
Yeah, we've noticed.
Over the last few weeks, anyway. Thomas, like I say, Football Matters debut for you tonight, and we're of course going to talk all things takeover only with you. I'm joking. I'm sure that you have fed up to the back teeth of talking about takeover. We might mention it towards the back end of this chat, but let's get straight into things from a ticketing perspective. What is the current state of play with Newcastle United and these tickets?
So basically, obviously, now that the games are going to be played behind closed doors, fans are now due what would be a pro rata refund on their season tickets for the games that won't take place, obviously, in front of fans. Now, that is something that we're quite sympathetic with. Obviously, it's a completely new situation for the football club to deal with. But it's the fact that we haven't had any real communication from the football club about the matter. The club have basically said that they aren't willing to offer any support whatsoever to fans who are currently feeling the pinch throughout these times. On top of that as well, the club are still taking season ticket payments for next season. As of now, supporters who are on the 10-year season ticket deal, they have had 3 payments taken for next season. So to give you an example of how much that would be, I personally pay £38 a month on my direct debit. So it's into the hundreds. So fans' money is currently sitting somewhere, and it's very unlikely that we're going to be watching a game live anytime soon.
We had a chuckle from Olivier Bernard there. Ollie, what do you make of that as a former Newcastle player?
He said it's happening on Wednesday.
Yeah, but that's it's probably in relation with the takeover. I don't think that the chairman is bothered because he's giving the club away, so it's not for him to deal with. And I think we'll have the answers once the takeover is official.
I think so.
We are asking a lot of questions, but at the minute it won't be resolved with Mike Ashley. That's definitely the case.
Well, we have got breaking news for you, Thomas, that the takeover won't be happening on Tuesdays now. It might be happening on a Tuesday. We're not entirely sure.
Right, okay.
I'm sure we say Tuesday or Wednesday now. But
Tuesday or Wednesday. Any day ending in Y. It could be.
It's imminent.
Oh God, that's another word that's been flying around that we don't want to talk about. Let's get back onto the ticket, because Thomas, you mentioned the fact that you NUST got in touch with the club. You outlined in a statement what you wanted the club to do. How satisfied have you been with the communication from the club, and how satisfied have you been with any answers that they've provided you?
Not satisfied at all. Communication has been very, very minimal. And I think that's what it boils down to at the end of the day. It's communication. We're very sympathetic with the entire situation. We know that the club can only do certain things. But there's one thing we are adamant about with the Supporters Trust, and I'm sure many other fans are the same, is that they can communicate with supporters. Fans don't deserve to be left in the dark about what's happening with hundreds of pounds of their money that is currently sitting there. Fans are entitled to know what's going to happen. We are now becoming the last Premier League club to communicate with their fans on this matter. And other clubs have put in place pro rata refunds. You could donate your money to charity. You could take it off next season tickets payment. We just haven't had any communication whatsoever, and that's the most disappointing thing.
Does you touch upon it there? Does it make it extra damning? You mentioned other Premier League clubs that have put systems into place. I'm going to take one in particular, and that's Norwich City. Right at the bottom of the Premier League table as it stands, the fact that they've put systems in place, does that make this situation that we find ourselves in here in Newcastle a little bit more damning than it ordinarily would have been?
A little bit, yeah. And it's very typical of what we've had to deal with for the last 13 years. So we aren't surprised. It's just still, this obviously hits home for a lot of people. There might be a lot of fans who don't need the money. Yeah. They can quite happily wait. It's that minority who right now could really do with that money. And I think the fact that those supporters have been ignored and could be forced down the cancellation route rather than, potential suspension of payments. Yeah. Something to try and just give the fans some reassurance that the club are actually thinking of them at this time. Because, it's not the fans' fault that the club's going through a takeover and everything else,
Regardless, of the fact that there is the imminency, shall we say, of the takeover. Do you think that that's the impact of these actions over the last 2 months or so, that fans are now being deterred to renewing any season tickets or to coming back to Newcastle United games as a result of the actions in the last 8 weeks?
It's such a difficult one. I think naturally no one in this situation will want to be cancelling their season ticket.
Yeah.
I certainly don't want to have to cancel my season ticket because obviously I'm very excited about what the future might hold. Yeah. There are some people who may not have that choice. And that's the difficult thing. And this is something we try to stress to the club. Within days of the Sheffield United game getting postponed, we knew what was coming and we contacted the club straight away. So this has been ongoing for a couple of months now. Yeah. And we try to explain the situation that some fans will be in. Can you offer some sort of support? And the clear answer was just no. And that's just wrong. There is things that they can do. and they can get approval from whoever owns the club.
From your
Thomas,
sorry,
I'm just thinking, and I'm not obviously up with all this, and I don't understand it all totally. But if the club is sold, who does then that fall on to refund this? If there's going to be a refund of season ticket off, it's going to carry over. Who shoulders that responsibility? Then is it the new owners?
I assume it probably would be, because it's the club's money, isn't it? So
are the delays is happening?
Yeah, I definitely, and that's why we're very sympathetic towards the entire situation. Yeah. Like I say, it all boils down to communication, and it always has done. As a supporters trust, that's one of the most frustrating things we've had at Newcastle, is the fact that they just don't talk to fans. Never mind the supporters trust; they just don't talk to anyone. They just go by their daily business, not without a care in the world, and that's the really gut-wrenching thing for a lot of people.
So you say this has been the situation for a couple of months now, Thomas. Where do you guys go at NUST? What are your next steps? Do you wait for the takeover to perhaps go through? Are you planning anything with the current ownership as it stands? It puts you in a bit of a grey area, doesn't it, in terms of what your next steps are?
Yeah, it's such a difficult situation. It feels as though, in complete honesty, that we're all just waiting for the takeover now and hoping that within the first few days, this is one of the first easy wins that they could have straight away. Yeah. I think that's the hope that we're clinging to now, because I think, me personally, I've given up all hope that this current regime will be reaching out to supporters anytime soon. If they do, fantastic. I won't be holding my breath.
I know you use the word hope there, but should the takeover happen, which we all believe is going to happen, it's a case of when, not if. How confident are you that is going to be one of the first steps taken by the prospective new owners, that they sort this situation out?
I think because it's been well publicised, and the fact that the thing stands here, that the fans are owed this money. So there's no hiding away from it. So they are going to have to approach this straight away. The rest of the Premier League have, so we need to be very, very quick on that as well. And I'm confident there will be. Like I say, it's an easy win. You don't want to get off on the wrong foot with Newcastle fans, do you? So
no comment whatsoever on that. That's where I'm going to use the host line very well, and I'm going to sit on the fence firmly on this one. Just away from the ticketing, Thomas, we can't have you on and not talk about the takeover and what it's going to bring the club. I'm sure you've seen it. Shay Given did an interview earlier on this week. Talked it would give the club fresh impetus and a new direction as well. What direction is this from yourself as a Newcastle United fan, as someone that's directly involved with the club? What direction would you like to see them going in? Of course, you want to see them further up the table, but ideally, what would you like to see out of this?
It's just the potential of what might happen. You always want the club to strive to be the best that it can be. And I know everyone says that, it's an old cliche, but it's the excitement is gone from a match day, and that's what I miss the most. It feels like a chore when you walk up to the ground. You really just look forward to going for a pint with your mates. That's pretty much it. Yeah. I want that back. I want that feeling back of walking up to the ground and travelling the country, knowing you had a bit of pride in your football team again. That's what I want to feel. Anything else that might come with that is just a bonus for now. I'm not looking. Ideally, I would dream and say, yeah, we're going to win everything, but just step by step. I think it has to be, because we could quite easily just make ourselves look like complete mugs if we just start demanding it from day one.
It wouldn't be like North East football for everything to unravel very, very quickly, wouldn't it? Just before you go, it is about the takeover, unfortunately. I'm sure you've seen Jonathan Liu's article in the New Statesman over the past few days. I'm just going to read out a section to you. Sorry, I'm not Tom Hardy. I don't tend to have that good a voice with this sort of thing, but I'll do my best. And he said this exactly. Rather that's Mike Ashley's, biggest crime in the eyes of supporters was parsimony. A failure to lavish his wealth with the sort of earth-scorching abandon that has rendered Roman Abramovich at Chelsea, Sheikh Mansour at Manchester City virtually immune to internal criticism. And here's the part that I want to talk about. Even if the Saudi deal fails to go through, Newcastle fans have already shown their hand. Currently, it is holding up a middle finger to the widow of a murdered dissident in the hope of a few big signings in the summer transfer window. Now, for those fans who have sent messages to Haj Changes, abhorrent, absolutely abhorrent. Couldn't be more clear of that. If that's your way of using Twitter to insult and threaten an innocent person, then you shouldn't be on there in the first place. But this is only a handful of supporters. Thomas, as a Newcastle fan, as someone who's directly involved with the club, how on earth do you react to a statement like that?
It's really, really hard to take because, you know, Newcastle fans, any football fan doesn't have a say in who's going to be taking over their football club. We just literally look at the situation as to what the potential might be. We look forward to the match on a Saturday or Sunday, Monday night, whatever it's going to be. That's what we care about. It's very, very difficult to start pinning all these things and all these accusations at supporters without any back into it whatsoever, other than a few comments on Twitter.
Yeah.
You know, it's wrong. It's totally, it's degrading of Newcastle fans, and it's not right. It's not right. You know, supporters, they just care about their football club, and that's it. We've had many messages at the trust, people with concerns naturally, and you know, as a supporters trust, we have to take in those because they are our members. We have to take those concerns in, but for now, it's just a case of we have to see where it's going. Everyone's just caring about what's going to happen with the football club. Yeah. I think throwing all these accusations at supporters that we're sticking the middle finger up to all these things that are completely out of our control is bang out of order.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave that there, Thomas, and we'll move on from that and leave it firmly in the past. And hopefully that is exactly where it stays. And hopefully the takeover for Newcastle fans will be the future. Listen, thank you very, very much for your time tonight, Thomas. Another thank you. Thanks for sending in those tweets about Ollie Bernard last week about his takeover comments. We used them early on the show. Really appreciate that. Same again this week, mate. Would be tremendous. But listen, thank you very much for your time, mate. Really appreciate it. And take care of yourself, all right?
Thank you.
Cheers, Thomas.
Thank you very much. That's Thomas Concannon from the Newcastle Utd Supporters Trust, and just for clarification, not one of those tweets was sent in by Thomas, in case no one understood the humour there. Guys, I just want to touch upon that statement that I've just read out. And Ollie, I really want to come to you about this. As a former player, as still a Newcastle United fan of sorts, how does that kind of make you feel to read a statement like that from, let's be honest, a respected journalist as well, Jonathan?
No, but we you know, as a club, we have been the laughing stock. You know, it's been difficult over the last couple of years. Having a chairman that doesn't help. You know, the club is just wanna, you know, apparently since he won a sale, he doesn't do anything else. He doesn't come to games. Doesn't hearing it from the journalist it's painful. Yeah. It's very painful. But you know, this you know, I wouldn't want to say there's a bit of truth in that, but the way we felt and we feel when we talk about Mark Ashley or the football club is very awkward, and sometimes you do want to you know, say a lot of things, a lot of naughty things. Yeah. Because you're not happy with it, but that's for me. It's been a frustration, and that's one of the reasons that I stopped going on the regular basic at St James Park. I
can't imagine you saying anything naughty, Ollie.
No, I'm a very nice person. So you know, people think people wouldn't think that I could do anything like that anyway, because I'm a very honest and warm and everything, you know. So
I think just going back to the article, you know, Newcastle fans just looking at what Man City have been through, Man City fans have been through. I think Newcastle fans, once this takeover goes through, are going to have to become extremely thick-skinned. I think they're going to have to get used to this sort of article. You know, I think what got me, two things got me was really in that piece. One, nobody in Newcastle has ever demanded that Mike Ashley spends money on the level of Man City. That Man City's owners have spent. Nobody's demanded hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds to be spent. Mm-hmm. That was grossly unfair. But what was even more unfair was the fact that the actions of a very, very, very small minority have been whitewashed right across the whole support. And you know, Newcastle, it is a big club. It has a big support around the world. There will inevitably be one or two people who will be idiots online, who will say things that disgrace the whole support. But that doesn't mean that every single Newcastle supporter in the world holds those opinions or, backs those opinions. And as we've said on this, once the takeover goes through, there will be questions to answer for the new board, which I'm sure, a lot of top journalists will do. That those questions will be answered, will be asked and hopefully answered. But this new board coming in, Newcastle United fans shouldn't be asked to hold them to account. It's down to journalists. The fans will play their part, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just grossly unfair that so much is being put on Newcastle fans that they've got so little control over.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. And that is exactly where we leave it. The fact that once this takeover eventually does go through, which, like I've said before, we all think it will, it's just a case of when, not if. I think, like you just said there, Mark, like you said, Ollie, and like Thomas has said, that this is far from over, and there's going to be plenty more talking points to come out of it.
There is just fine. I mean, there is one, other conversation we could have, which would go on forever if we did. But the fact that this is going through,
you want to take the program into Tuesday, don't you?
I know, sorry, but like the fact that this will go through, despite what everyone knows has gone on in Saudi Arabia. That's not the failing of Newcastle United or the failing of Newcastle United fans. That's the failing of the Premier League's fit and proper persons test. So it's the test that should be looked at in the regulations they've put in place, the Premier League have put in place. That needs a complete overhaul.
Yeah.
So that should be the focus here as much as what's going on in the past, allegedly, in Saudi Arabia.
Fair point, Matt. Fair point. Okay, well, let's go on from Newcastle United and leave them behind, shall we? We'll go on to Sorry, Darren. You all right there, lad?
Yeah, not too bad, mate.
At least you've got a can next to you, just in case.
He's just finished it.
If I slope away.
I thought I saw a cheeky swig out of the bottom left-hand corner of my screen. Well, apparently you got it from your pub, Ollie. He was telling us.
Yeah, he's on the draft there. It's not a can. Not a can.
Ollie's pub.
I never thought I would ever see the day that Football Matters would ever be used as a marketing vehicle for Ollie's pub. But today's seemingly that day in the future as well.
Did somebody say marketing? Because I've got a book out at the moment. I don't know if anyone knows about that, but it's called Northern Goal. It's about the North East success in the FA Vars.
Did you say that the pub was in Blythe? Yeah, you did. Okay, that's cool.
And your book has been out for how long, Mark?
Not long enough.
Not long enough. Okay, Darren, anything that you want to put out there?
Yeah, I sell Herbalife if anybody's interested.
Well, that's going to be a segment every single week, and guarantee we're going to have a producer on the phone afterwards saying, Andy, we need to turn that into a segment every Monday night. Marketing, perfect. Sponsors will roll on board. We'll talk about sponsorship from the pub later on, Ollie, after we're finished.
To be fair, Andy, you might get a deal by, pushing sex dolls after last week.
That was my aim all along, my friend.
If you look at the background,
I
think that's one of them.
This one. I thought I'd hidden that a while back, but clearly not well enough.
I can see the feet.
It's going to be like that scene in Only Fools and Horses, isn't it?
To be fair, man's around on Tuesday.
Honestly.
All I'll say is it says a lot for Royal Mail and for DHL and all the likes that it only took 6 days to get here. So congratulations to them, and any sponsorship is welcome. Let's very quickly go on to any other business. Lots to get through, so we'll try and sprint through this so we can get through it the team of the week. South Shields, first and foremost. Jeff Thompson, chairman, of course, said one of our first programmes during this lockdown that they would follow legal action after the FA decided to cancel all football in steps 3 to 7. Seems that he's been true to his word, Mark.
Yeah, fund being launched to get some financial backing for that legal bid. I think as well as trying to get supporters on board, it seems to be trying to get the other clubs that have been impacted by the decision to avoid the season, trying to get them on board. Yeah. And make it a collective effort. I think there will be a point when a big decision has to be made over this. Whether that's approaching at the moment or not, I'm not so sure. That's a question for Jeff, where you kind of just move on from what's happened. Yes, there's always going to be that bitterness towards the decision,
Yeah.
But I think there may be a point when you have to say, right, that's done now. We're going to have to move on and focus on next season, which I'm sure Jeff will do and South Shields will do if that comes. But
they already are starting to do that as well in terms of new additions. Yeah. There's been a relatively big new addition in the last few days, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's a positive move forward. It does show that they are planning for next season. It's all, the players that have retained as well. We shouldn't forget about that. And it's just now, it's good to see that they are looking next season now. We're not getting too caught up in what's gone on. And I think it's very important that the management team, who are clearly already doing that, and the club as a whole do start progressing.
Yeah, certainly good to see. Another club that is progressing, especially considering where they were a year ago this weekend, I think it was, since they were saved by the fans. There's been more actions taken over the bank holiday for Gateshead, Mark.
Yeah, wonderfully, the supporters have launched a budget booster that was launched 6 o'clock on Sunday night. It's already over $4,000 raised. There's a $10,000 target, so they are doing well. It's been this has fully come from the supporters, from the Gateshead Soul and the wider Gateshead supporter network that they've got. Yeah. What we shouldn't forget with Gateshead is just how close they came to going last year. And I know, obviously, I was quite heavily involved in reporting on this. They were literally hours away from going under, because of the previous owners. Now they're rebuilding the foundations, and I know the club are very, very keen to stress that what happened 12 months ago is done. They've had this whole year of progression under Mike Williamson and Ian Watson, and it's now in the hashtag they're using. You'll see it on Twitter. Is the new chapter, so that they're moving on to the next chapter of supporter ownership. That is building the club, continuing to build the club, getting behind Mike and Ian, and letting them build on the success that they achieved over the last 6, 7, 8 months. So fair play to the supporters; they deserve a lot of credit. They're the ones driving it, and I hope it works. We should also mention, and I can't remember who we're going to, Darlington as well. Their own. The fans, they've raised over £100,000. It's just gone past £100,000, which is an absolutely sensational effort from their supporters.
Ridiculous. And I tell you what, they've been rewarded though at Darlington as well, in the news that Alan Armstrong signed a new 3-year deal with the club. Like you say, wonderful effort from the supporters. Olly and Darren bring you in on this one. Not just the contribution of the supporters, but this news now that Alan Armstrong signed a new 3-year deal's huge for Darlington, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's massive. I mean, Alan's a good lad. He's got a good pedigree in football. He has a lot of knowledge. Obviously, he works alongside Darren Holloway as well. Yeah. Again, full of experience, and and two great guys as well who want to strive to do well. And good luck to him. We all know, the Darlington situation, what happened, and and where it went to, and now it's turning the corner and it's on its way back again. So hopefully that success will continue. That it's the Darlington job's a job that everyone looks out for. Whenever it comes up, and everybody wants to be. I've been in it myself. I've put my name in it a few times to get the Darlow job. Unfortunately, I've not made the grade at the time, which is fair enough. But Alan and Darren have come in and done extremely well. So and obviously, like you say, the supporters, it's a fantastic, achievement to bring in over $100,000 is just ridiculous.
Well, you might not have made the grade at Darlington, Darren, but assistant manager role at Ollie's new pub. Who needs Darlington at the end of the day?
I'm not too sure how the profits will go. But
I think the profit we're going to get, Jake. Drunk by somebody. So,
When I'm pouring on, is it one for me and one for the customer?
It's got the makings of a very well-run business, this one.
You'll be the type of guy that would say, okay, you can have it for free if I can have it for free, and then you run the club down, innit?
Shortest run.
It's your birthday? Oh yes, let's have one. It's yours tomorrow. Okay, come round tomorrow.
Again, last one, Ollie. I'm gonna come on to you after this. Actually, Stockton Town, Stockton have announced new stadium sponsorship. Good news signing as well at Stockton, Mark, as the transfer merry-go-round continues.
unbelievable signing. Shane Henry going in there, player Darren knows all too well from his time at Whitby. Shane, I've always rated as one of the best midfielders in semi-professional football in the region. What we shouldn't forget, he's going to go into that midfield alongside, for a starting lineup place, he'll be competing with the likes of Tom Portas.
Yeah,
incredible player as well. Another one Darren knows very well. You got Max Craggs there. You got Mulligan. There's so many strong options. I would argue a midfield of Shane Henry. Adding Shane Henry basically gives them a National League North midfield with Tom Portas in there. Yeah. It's just it's a fine signing. But again, you mentioned the stadium sponsor. That's a massive boost to see a business, a local business, getting behind their football club in such an uncertain time for people across the business community. So fair play to them. But yeah, just an unbelievable signing, Shane Henry.
Certainly is, and obviously Spennymoor losing Shane Henry, but they've compensated. They've added former Darlington forward Stephen Thompson to their ranks. We talk about jobs that are up for debate. Ollie, Durham are apparently looking for a new bus driver, I hear.
I knew that one. I knew that one was going to come up. Yes,
your tweet,
yeah, because what we do in we're a very special club. And with the academy running alongside the football club, we will have a lot to do. So ideally, we are looking for somebody on a full-time base. That'd be great. So anybody that interested, ring number 0776923. Thank you.
A number of people on Twitter will be ringing you tonight, or trying to. Anyway. Darren, what were you going to say?
What license do you need, Ollie, for that?
Cat D. Isn't it? Cat D.
I'm there, mate.
There's your man. Sorted.
There we go.
As long as you know how to drive from Durham to Barnard Castle, Darren, I think you'll be absolutely fine.
Totally.
We'll leave that one behind, shall we? And we will finish this week on Team of the Week, of course. Finally, more debate than the Houses of Parliament, I think, after last week's, the Journeyman 11. Darren, Ollie wasn't the only one who got a few hits on social media, was he?
No, mate. I'm to be quite honest. I mean, I people obviously whinging on about my team selection. I mean, you just got to look at it on paper. It was unbelievable, wasn't it? Let's be honest. We'd have all loved to sit and watch them. Come on, now,
Hey, I was one who pointed out, I think I did actually say on Twitter as well, loved seeing Marcus Bent lead the line alongside the original Ronaldo. I thought that was an absolute stroke of genius from yourself and from Mark, of course. I would say you, Ollie, but let's be honest, your contributions were a little bit...
I'm prepared this week. I'm prepared. I'll do that there myself. I've got an English team. I've got an international team. I've got a sub on the bench team. Like, I've done it.
You got detention last week.
Yeah, slap on the wrist, I think.
I've got to be honest. I think the people on Twitter who backed me were just bang on, absolutely correct. And thanks to Stephen Shaw for backing us up, because I know I was right. But anyway, just move on.
Yeah, two sides to every story on that one. This week, let's move on to this week, because you have voted and you've come up with a really intriguing one: a local lads 11. Now, just to confirm, so we don't have guidelines that are more vague than the government, this refers to any player who played for that club that they supported or were born in, and I don't like this because this is vague, or around that area. So, basically, who fulfilled the childhood dreams, who kissed their badge and actually meant it. Let's get
nationally or internationally?
Nationally.
Okay.
It's just in the Premier League, Ollie.
Just Premier League.
Don't worry, I've got it covered.
You've got 5 11s by the sounds of it. So we're going to start with you, Ollie, and we're going to start in goal for your local lads 11. Go.
In goal, Steve Harper.
Good shout. Okay, that'll do for me. Darren, let's go with you.
Yeah, I went Steve Harper as well.
Okay.
Liar, man.
1 for 1 on the Newcastle picks for Darren. Fantastic. Mark?
I've gone Jordan Pickford. Sunderland.
Jordan Pickford down as well, mate, to be quite honest.
I Another one. We've got him.
I thought you were going to show us another Herbalife sponsorship there, Darren.
It is on the pitch.
We've got 1.5 votes for Harper and 1.5 votes for Pickford. Then in that case, let's go along with that. Defence. Sorry, I should have asked actually. What formation are we going with this week?
4-3-3.
Mark's 4-3-3. Darren?
I've got 4-4-2.
Of course.
Old school.
Ollie?
I've got 3-5-1.
3-5-1.
Can play 9 players.
Get a man.
3-5-1-1.
Ollie's got
3-5-1-1. Honestly.
Can we just?
People don't understand English nowadays.
I tell you.
3-5-1-1.
As long as it's explained that way at Durham City, mate, we'll be absolutely fine. I'm sure. At least we know what formation they're playing next season under Didier Gadd and Tom Wade. Let's tell you what, we went with 4-3-3 last week, didn't we? Sorry, Mark. We're going to go 4-4-2 this week. I've seen you die a little bit inside behind the eyes.
Just adjust, mate. Just drop one in the hole.
You haven't got Cantona there, have you, playing in midfield?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Defence, 4 across the back. Darren?
Sorry, I'm sorted. I've done it.
Right. Okay. I'll be honest with you, I went really local. And I went Steve Watson, right back.
Watson at right back, yeah.
I went Woodgate, centre half.
Yeah.
Alongside myself. Can't leave myself out, can I really?
I mean, you could.
Could, yeah. It happened. I got Mickey Gray as well.
Mickey Gray, okay. Excellent. Nothing
I went low.
to this. I like this.
Okay.
Mark, go with your defence.
Right back, I've gone for a player that's spent his whole career at his boyhood club, which was Gary Neville. Left back, Paul Dummett. And then the 2 centre backs, Tony Adams, of course, and Jamie Carragher.
Okay.
So I think I've got. Am I right in saying all 4 only played for the boyhood clubs?
Yes. Adam, yeah. Adams,
apart from Dummett, who's obviously been out on loan, but that doesn't count.
Yeah, actually played in contract. Yeah. There was just question marks over Adams for a second, but I think Adams just played for Arsenal.
No, Adams only played for Arsenal. Yeah.
He played for Arsenal. Yeah, it's a good,
yeah.
good for that at the back.
I don't know if he was playing manager at Wickham for a bit. I don't know if he was just manager.
Well,
manager. He hasn't been playing for another club, I think.
I don't think he played, or did he, even if he was?
No, I don't think he has, to be honest.
Good shout across that back 4. Ollie, have we got any advances from your 4-3 or whatever?
Very, very much like Mark. I had Neville on the right. Adams. John Terry. I know he went to Aston Villa as well.
Yep.
But he spent most of his career in Chelsea.
Yep.
And Robbie Elliott.
Yeah.
Good shout. It's a very, very good shout, actually. Didn't have that.
I know. I've done it. I've done my homework. This one. I know.
I love how more confident you get when you actually do some work for the programme. Right. Okay. There's a good mix and match going on there, actually. Some Northeast names, some national names. I like that. Midfield. Let's go. Mark, you first on midfield.
You'll probably not get a much better 4 than this, to be honest. Jordan Henderson, Paul Scholes, Stephen Gerrard, Paul Gascoigne.
Henderson, Scholes, Gerrard, and Gascoigne.
Just put that in. Move on.
Well, if I did, at least I wouldn't get any comeback on Twitter this week.
Did you mention Giggsy?
Well, no, because he was born in Wales, wasn't he?
Wales, aye.
But he's a one-man club, isn't it?
Yeah, but he's born in Wales.
Not
Manchester's not in Wales, mate.
Any Beckham? No.
Beckham born in London.
He was born in London.
Is it?
Stone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Any more you want to throw, Ollie?
Ollie, I'll come to you last. Darren.
Yeah, please.
So I've got the only one I didn't go, which was local, was Stephen Gerrard.
Okay.
I went Martin Smith.
Oh,
obviously local. I went Ledbetter. I did have Henderson down, but I thought I'll go Grant Ledbetter because I thought somebody's going to bring Henderson up anyway. And I went Stewie Downing on the left.
Good shout.
Great shout. Lovely. Okay. Ollie, have you rejigged your midfield now that you've worked out the gigs?
Yeah, of course. I was thinking Gerard, Scholes on the right.
Scholes on the right.
Gerard, King, and what? No, I didn't have any. I put Giggsy, but obviously you said no.
So have we gone Scholes, Gerard? Was there anyone else?
Letizia on the left.
Letizia, Guernsey, Southampton. Give or take a bit of water.
If we take away the water.
You know what? We went further last week, didn't we? I'll give you that, Ollie. We'll go with Letiz in there.
Thank you.
Just in the hole. We've taken.
To be fair, if we're taking away the water, Ollie played for his hometown club when he went to Southampton.
I'm surprised, Ollie, you didn't name yourself in there then. We could have had a Banana Williams back four. Well, not back four, you're not.
No, hey, I played for the club I supported, Newcastle United, yeah? Growing up, I supported Newcastle.
I thought you... Is this something...
your hip?
Yeah, that's just me hips. Sorry about that.
I thought it was pizza delivery.
It's getting better, but it's still... I still need to go out and run it, you know what I mean? So, sorry, apologise.
Just get that oil on it tonight. Should be able to work. Okay, all right, let's move on to the forwards then, because we're over time. Forget that. Forwards. Ollie, let's go with your forwards.
Andy Carroll.
Carroll, good start. Yep.
And Rooney.
Rooney at Everton. Yep, great show. Your hip is not sounding good.
It's not good, that man.
No, the way it's just the doors are opening and closing behind me. You know.
Get some
alone at home.
Really good.
You can't get the stuff these days, Ollie, can you? Can't get the stuff. Either that or that pizza delivery man is definitely wanting to get your house.
Did we go 4-4-2 or 4-3-3?
4-4-2.
I think we've just gone 4-4-2. Yeah, let's go with that. Darren, let's go with your strikers.
I went with somebody we had on the show, Andy Campbell.
Great shout. Right.
And Shearer.
Okay, excellent. Mark?
Probably best to point out, I think that's the second time that Darren's put Shearer in his team.
I know, I don't know what's going on with him and Shearer.
Practically counting up how many Newcastle players are in it. One.
Yeah, I've gone...
3 out of 11.
Yeah, I've gone Shearer and I've also gone Robbie Fowler.
Fowler, of course.
Michael Owen?
Toxteth boy.
I wouldn't put Michael Owen on my team if he's the last person on this, so...
That's shocking. Do you not remember World Cup 98?
I do very well.
Mark?
Yes?
Are you not a fan of Michael Owen then?
I think we need to move on. Time's getting...
No, I think we need to hear it.
Look, if Ollie put his neck on the line last week with nominating Tuesdays, Wednesdays, whatever he nominated for this takeover, the least you can do, mate, is team.
You wanted to say, Mark? Sorry.
I think we're running over. Come on.
Oh, it's okay, mate. We ran over about 15, 20 minutes ago. No problem. Tell you what, we'll keep that for Football Matters Extra, shall we? It's the more censored version.
He was excellent for England, wasn't he? Let's be honest.
And Liverpool.
Okay. Lovely. Let's leave it right there. And I await the outrage on social media this week after choosing that. Maybe we can even have a joint mean tweets next week. Not just Ollie. It's not fair for you to shoulder all the responsibility. We'll just put any tweet that offends Football Matters or makes us laugh over the next 7 days, and we'll get mean tweets going. I can see a theme development here somewhere along the line. Anyway, that just about does us for this week. All that's left to do is to remind you that, of course, we are on SoundCloud as a podcast. That'll be up over the next day or so, and watch us on YouTube or Facebook, or listen to it on there. Thank you very much to our guests, John Oster and Thomas Concannon. Mark, quiz Thursday.
Yes, staying in the World Cup as we did last week. It's going to be moving to South Africa, so the World Cup 2010. A great tournament, of course, a history-making tournament. So 25 questions on that World Cup. Well done to Dan Prince, by the way, for winning last week's World Cup 2002 quiz. See if you can beat them on Thursday. So 8:10 on myquiz.org. So links will be out.
You beat me too, then. I know I caught you out last week when I asked who won it the previous week. So, not that Olly's not the only one who's been doing his research and his prep this week.
Not as well as me.
You can retire, Olly, but you're never going to lose that competitive nature at all.
Can eat.
So Dan Prince, winner again. Well done to Dan. And like Mark says, quiz back on Thursday evening, 8:10. Gents, as ever, pleasure all mine. See you in 7 days' time, I guess.
Look after
More
yourself.
lockdown loving. For you watching at home, where else would you be? Let's be honest. Thank you. Keep watching. Keep the faith. And regardless of what government officials do take care of yourselves and keep safe and try and keep inside your own homes, because football matters. Health matters even more. From all of us here at Football Matters, take care. We'll see you in 7 days. Bye for now.